an AppleVis original.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the AppleVis Extra. It is that time of year. WWDC Keynote took place on Monday. My name is Dave Nason. I'm joined by my wonderful colleagues from AppleVis, Thomas Domville and Tyler Stephen, to talk all about it. Guys, how are you doing?
I'm good.
I'm doing great. It's good to have us, all three of us together again. It's been a long time, so I'm excited to talk about our angle of what we thought the WWDC.
Yeah, it is great to be back together on a podcast. It has been a while, so and even people Thomas have asked me about, is Thomas still doing podcasts? So it's great to hear your voice.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple months, with technical issues and medical leave. I'm back in action, so we're good. So that's where I've been. So hopefully you'll hear a lot more of me this point on.
Great stuff. And yeah, let's jump into it. We've got, I think, an unusual WWDC keynote this year. So give me your overall impression of just how they went about it first, and what you thought of the show before we dig into the details, because I think it was a departure from previous years, right?
Was it ever? Um, One interesting thing that stuck out was going right into it. They did three major pillars, whereas in prior years it would be like they'd talk about iOS, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, and maybe tvOS and audioOS or whatever those things are. But this time they were pretty clear from the outset. There were three pillars they were going to focus on: refinement, trust and safety, and AI. So, in the beginning of the keynote, when Craig Federighi started talking, they went right to, before they could get really into the meat of the presentation, immediately announced the name of macOS 27, which is Golden Gate, um, continuing on their tradition of California themed names. In prior years, they would have saved that for the macOS segment of the presentation, but considering that this one was different, they just went ahead and took care of it before getting into the details of the products they announced. So it
Yeah.
is, yeah, and it was a shorter keynote than before. Ran for about, than prior years, ran for about hour, 15 minutes. Some of them have run hour and a half, 2 hours, or sometimes even maybe even over 2 hours.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Thomas, some people have called it low key or uneventful, but I mean, there was stuff in there. Like, what was your kind of thought in the whole?
It's kind of like I was just shocked that they spent a whole segment on the family safety thing. That was kind of a surprise. But I agree with Tyler is that this is a totally different direction they went with this year. And I mean, going into it, I knew it was going to be one of those update years. So I think some people were kind of anticipating a whole bunch of new stuff, and I don't think people came in knowing that. If I had not known that, I would have said, "Man, this is so underwhelming." But knowing that when in the get go, I was kind of happy. I was kind of happy it wasn't packed with a bunch of stuff because they really meant what they said. This is going to be an update year.
I think you're right, and we can't have it both ways, I guess, because people have for a while been asking for the so-called snow leopard year, to tidy things up. So then if they do that, we can't complain that it's boring because you can't have it both ways.
Right. But I mean, it was obvious too that there was definitely the gorilla in the room, and it was like they were
Mm,
doing their darnest to try to make it relevant and something
mm,
interesting to talk for the first half hour or whatever it was through the first two pillar
yeah,
Tyler mentioned. And then it was kind of like, okay, now for the gorilla in the room, let's talk about what we're really here for. And so it was kind of a build up for me. It's like, come on, come on, come on, come on,
yeah,
come on,
yeah.
come on, come on. Lots of videos. And so I was thinking, man, it would have probably been 45 minutes if it wasn't for all the videos.
Yeah, totally. In a way, it makes actual sense because in recent years, with the amount of stuff that's been the convergence of the operating systems, there had been got to a point where they'd announce iOS and all the stuff that's new in iOS, and then they get to iPad and go, you get all of that stuff as well, and get to Mac and go, yeah, you get all that kind of stuff as well. So there is some actual sense, I think, to doing it this way as well, maybe. But yeah, I think overall I agree with you. We dive in first, get the safety piece, because I know you said like it took you weren't maybe expecting them to spend so much time on it, but it is kind of cool in the sense of some of the parental features, the screen time. I don't have kids myself, have nieces and nephews and stuff, so I get it to that level, I suppose. Thomas, you've kids, they're grown now, but if they were 12, 13, 14 years old, would you be impressed by what they announced here?
You know, I was really happy that they were taking this a little more serious, but I also was kind of chuckling through this part because in hindsight, I felt like Apple's doing this because they're forced to. There's a lot of different countries, a lot of places are starting to implement more stricter control of how old individual have to be to get to social media and all that. It seems like Apple was kind of confronted, like you're going to have to do something, you're going to have to make it big because you're going to have to get ahead of this before you start getting into a lot of trouble. And I felt like this was their answer. Now, to answer your question, it was badly over. It was so badly needed what they did. Yes, what they enhanced on parental control and the type of controls that we can do was way more improved because it was kind of really complicated and messy. We've tried this a couple times with our kids, and it was just hard. It was very hard for
Mm,
anybody to sit down and know exactly because there was too many things and fragmented. And I felt like they did a better job of kind of consolidating things. And the thing is, what really played in here is that the old child safety was terrible. There were
mm,
holes that the kids were found a way to get around, and they never did anything about it for years. And so they were able to get around some of the things settings that we had. And now they address some of those holes that schools and other parents have had in the past to kind of just make things a little bit tighter, a little bit more configurable because
mm,
not all sites fit the same. Where before it was just like you got this, it's either on or off, and it was just like, but it was more configurable. I like it.
mm.
I thought this was well done and bravo. I wish they have done this years ago, that when they could have instead of just waiting until they had to do something.
Yeah, I think that user experience piece is huge, like, because kids are always going to be one step ahead. And historically, anyway, it seems when it comes to this stuff. So make it as easy to use and as easy to find for parents as possible. I think it's definitely going to be key. I know I'm on the fence about what you said about them being forced to do it, because in the sense that to some extent, I think it's the social media companies and things that maybe aren't doing enough, and now Apple are stepping into that space, one could argue. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
No, I mean, this is kind of those areas, this gray area where everybody will have something different. We're in the state now where, I know United Kingdom or England, Australia, and other places are starting to force OS level age
Mm,
restriction. And it seems like Apple is trying to kind of comply with those things. And I feel like, okay, since we're doing this already, we might as well start to kind of tighten down the nuts and bolts for the rest of the family safety things that we need to control now. Because here in the States, we're a little behind on that. There's a lot of drum rolling. There's certain states that are starting to say, hey, we want more of the OS. Whether this right or wrong, it's really comes down to being so political.
mm,
But whether I think that's right or wrong, I'm not going to mention anything or say what I think about that. But I just think that I think this is Apple's way of complying with a lot of that stuff, and I think
yeah,
that's what I meant by being forced. Is that I think their hands are tied by a lot of different things that's going on now, so they're trying to get ahead of that.
fair. And Tyler, like, I think some of the things, so technically speaking, like what it's doing now, correct me if I'm wrong, is the parents get control over things like specific websites, and if they can set it so their child wants to go to a new website, it will literally notify them to ask, can I access this website, or can I add this contact to my phone, which is a key, I guess, safety thing. Were you impressed by it on a technical level?
Um, yeah, I think it's a healthy expansion of, there was a couple iterations over the years. Like, for example, on iOS, there was restrictions, going back in the day. And then, of course, on macOS, there was the parental controls facility associated with user accounts. And then, obviously, screen time was introduced in 2018. And so this is kind of a major enhancement of that. Like, for example, Ask to Browse, they're building on their Ask to Buy feature for the App Store, but bringing it to the open web, or trying to apply their parental controls functions to, attempting to regulate access to the open web. Um, so I wonder if, in some ways you could say it's Apple trying to sort of get ahead of some of these regulations, which is currently very much a patchwork between states and countries. Um, but if they can, prove the viability of the declarative age range API, then that could be a step forward, in the long run for accessibility. Because when a bunch of companies, like social media companies and other sorts of things, require age, and in different places might have different forms of ID that are considered acceptable, that can introduce a lot of barriers in terms of,
Mm.
disability, as well as other characteristics that may cause someone to not have that form of ID or not be able to readily present that type of ID. Whereas if the declarative age range API and similar OS level things from competitors become widely accepted as, trustworthy proofs of age, then that could reduce some of those barriers and friction points.
Mm.
Because if you think about, with at least my understanding of how declarative age range works on Apple platforms, is they can, based on a number of signals, they can, guess someone's age or ascertain whether someone's age is what they say it is. So, for example, if they have a credit card connected to their Apple account, or Face ID, which has the added benefit of not sharing biometric data with third parties, just using that as the token that the operating system will then use to attest to the user's age. So maybe that's kind of how they're approaching it. Um, which if it goes as they plan, then I think that could be useful, because this is one of those things where, even if you are not in a situation where you would use parental controls or screen time, the fact that age gating is becoming more prevalent means that it affects everybody in a society, whether or not you are a kid or whether or not you have kids. Um, so that's why it um, needs everybody to, um, sort of be on that same page, or have that ongoing um,
Yeah.
sort of discussions.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and whether parents actually use these tools in practice. So yeah, maybe there'll be discussions about this on the site in the future. Speaking of the site, Alex Hall came back, our former team member, but still, shall we say, correspondent, came back and did one of his great recaps of the event. Check that out on the website. And I think for the main meat of the event was the Siri and the Apple Intelligence, or the new Siri AI. I think Alex referred to it as Apple Intelligence Super Extra Plus, something to that effect, referring to the fact that it was announced 2 years ago, um, has arrived in very, very limited way. Went back to the drawing board, and now we have new features and new Apple Intelligence and a new Siri called Siri AI. Thomas, what did you make of it?
It's funny because I can't help it, but I have to think of myself 2 years ago when I heard the same thing, or at least portion what they went over in that keynote. they kind of ditto and kind of piggybacked out. Okay, now we're here for real, and this is what it can do. And it was kind of like, on theory, on paper, the whole Apple Intelligence section was amazing. There was a lot of things to digest. They just went bang, 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 and it took me a while to really kind of think this out because it's a whole new way of how to interact with our iPhone. Instead of having to open up ChatGPT and ask all those questions, it's just like right there on your side button to initiate all this stuff. There were a ton of stuff in there. My God, it was like, wow, I'm still trying to digest how in a practical use this is going to be for us. But in saying that, I'm almost, part of me was thinking, I hope they deliver this time for real. And part of me also say, I wonder if my device will support this.
Yes, 2 points on that. It said the words "in beta" later this year were said, and it's like how is this thing still in beta? And number two, there was kind of a reference to some parts of it being on our most powerful devices or something to that effect without that being defined.
Hmm.
So
Um,
that,
yes. So it's 12 gigs of RAM, and so it'd be like the Pro, I believe it's the iPhone, is it the 17
17
Pro and
Pro.
17 Pro Max? The
Yep.
17,
and
the
Air.
17E are excluded, and I believe the Air is, yeah. So it's weird. Yeah,
Included.
the latest models, but not the most powerful technically. The 17 and the 17E will not get this new model on Mac OS. M3 Max and later with 16 gigs of RAM. Um, and
It,
I
Tyler,
don't know about, oh,
is
sorry.
that based, sorry, is that based though on anything Apple have told us, or is that based on people's experience so far with betas?
That
Mm.
is, from my understanding, I read it on from I believe Mac Rumors. I don't know exactly where, but it seemed to have been corroborated multiple times. I don't know exactly where that comes from, but it makes sense considering what how Apple has branched out their their devices over
Yeah.
the years in terms of
Do we
RAM
know?
and chip.
Hmm.
And I don't think we're
Um,
that clear. I'm certainly not that clear on what
yeah,
parts are,
yeah,
are part of this, and some of it is maybe you'll still get the feature,
yes,
but if you're not on one of those
yes,
powerful devices, it'll be on Apple private cloud as opposed to on
yeah.
device. Is that correct?
Um, yeah, again, my understanding is there were two features, and what I got was vague, but basically the dictation, which is, which Apple claims is, vastly improved dictation accuracy, as well as much more expressive voices, apparently for Siri, more expressive than they are now, is only available. Those two things are only available on the most powerful devices, which I interpret to mean the iPhone 17 Pro, Pro
Yep.
Max, and Air, as well as
Hmm.
M3 or later Max with 16 gigs of RAM or
Okay.
higher.
But
That
the rest of
Where
the
there's
Serie I will go back to other devices.
yes,
Okay.
but I don't think my understanding is anything that isn't that will is Apple Intelligence capable will be able to do much of the functions of Siri AI, but not the more expressive voices or the enhanced or improved dictation accuracy.
You know what drives me crazy is that, we had this discussion last year, or even on the year before when Apple Intelligence was being spoken, and I keep repeating this over and over. I said, this, welcome to the new era of fragmentation where things are really going to make a big difference now. Where before, some features here and there, but now there's going to be some major fragmentation with this. And I
Mm.
agree with Tyler, is that it's not confirmed. Nobody can get a confirm of what actual feature is considered advanced AI and what device. But there has been discussions about the things I wanted was the new voices, the more expressive, those are being seen now only on 17 Pro and above. So they're assuming that, but trying to get a confirmation on that. So now you got three tiers of people, and
Mm.
I don't think we've ever had that problem. So those three tiers are tier number one is anybody that has a iPhone 15 and down, not the i15 Pro, but the i15 and down, will not get any of this. None. Now, for those that have i15 Pro up to the 16 Pro, we'll get tier number two, meaning that we do have Apple Intelligence. We'll get most of those things minus the major player when it comes to the imaging, the voices, and the advanced dictation. Those are on tier three, and it just blows my mind. I have a 16 Pro, no, yeah, 16 Pro, not even 2 years old, and it won't be tier three. That is just, I'm just like, that's really going to upset the community big times. I think that's going to really upset a lot of people because now you're talking about you have to have the device of last fall, but the pros be able to take advantage of the tier three stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they are particularly turn out to be useful features. And then you have the geographical tiers on top of that as well. So
Oh,
there's
that's right.
people like me in the European Union are told coming sometime is about as much info as we got on that one. So yeah, China as well.
Right. Again, yeah, you're right. It's regional specific. They made that very clear. English only. But they didn't get
English
into
only
the
as well. Yeah.
details like, okay, EU's not going to get this, da 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 da. And so you guys have to wait maybe a year. It's hard to say. So it's kind of disappointing on that line. And I'm kind of disappointed it didn't all just fall out, but I guess it makes sense to come in phases. So as of right now, beta one, not everything is there, of course. So
Mm.
the meat of it is still missing. But I do have, I liked in the keynotes in Apple Intelligence, which we might as well just get into some of the things. I did get access to the Siri AI. It's interesting. It's not. I thought we were going to have a chat bot, and maybe that will
Mm.
come at some point. But right now, when you talk to it, it stops, and then you kind of read it on your screen, or she'll tell you what it is, and then you have to hit the microphone button to keep going back and forth with the dialogue. I thought
Okay.
there'll be an option to say, "Hey, how you doing?" And, oh, I'm doing fine. Let's just keep talking together. No, it at this point is that's not the case. But the things I like about this and the ones I get most out of the keynote is the Apple Intelligence describe image.
Hmm.
What does that mean? This is a game changer in terms of productivity. So let's just say I'm on Facebook and we all been there. To try to find a picture and share that with PixieBot or Be My AI is complicated. Lots of swiping, lots of buttons to push, and that's if it even works at all.
Yeah.
This works anywhere all the time. I love it. Doesn't matter what app you're in. If you see an image, you just focus on the image, swipe up, boom. There's your, it says intelligent image description. Double tap that, and within a second, it just describes the image. Now, it's a huge improvement from what they had before, but it's not at the Be My AI or PixieBot level, but it's good enough for me. I love it that if I'm done listening to that, I can swipe up twice and it says a follow up, and I double tap that and I can ask additional questions about it. The answers are kind of quick and quip right now, which is kind of,
Hmm.
I wish we can. At some point, I'm hoping that we'll get more describe, more depth, but I hope there might be a settings where we can do that. But if they don't, it's okay. But I will say 80% of my work now is just doing that. I could just swipe up, and I'm able to do what I need without having to go to Be My AI or PixieBot now. So that is huge.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah. I
yeah.
we that's one part, and actually I know this is beta, so things can change tomorrow. But as of now, that part does appear to be available in the European Union. which is
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. So it's not part of Siri. So I don't have to, we can't get the Siri AI app. We can't apply for it
Mm.
or anything. So we don't have that interface. And we don't have some of the other stuff that we'll talk about in a bit, like the contextual awareness and stuff. But we do have that, thankfully, we do have that image description. And I agree, it's really fast. I think it's being done on device with their, but I'm not sure to be honest. But it is fast. The fact that it's got three options, like the intelligent description, and
Descriptions.
you've got the ask, which is voice only input. I think at the moment, if you select the ask button, I would like that to be have a text option as well. But also then explore, which lets you go into it a bit more. I don't know if either of you can explain the difference between those three at all.
Um, so I think Explorer is an update to the classic voiceover image explorer where you can get a sense of sorts of where objects are positioned in an image. So if you have, a person in the center, if it's a picture of a person and then there's, other things in the shadows, say a table, a deck, plates of food, whatever. My understanding is that Image Explorer can allow the user to essentially navigate the objects in the image spatially. It's not something I use. The way I get images described and the way I take in that kind of information, I don't have the inclination to explore tactily. But that's my understanding of what Image Explorer is. It's existed for a number of years now, but this is, with the improvements in AI descriptions, it's supposed to be richer. Um, Whereas Ask is like, if you have an image, you get it described. If you want to follow up, you can choose Ask, and it
Yeah.
will. Um,
But what you can do
well,
is actually you can jump straight to the question. You don't have to get the image described
yes,
first. You can just hit
yes.
ask and just ask your question.
Yeah, so those are all in the rotor on iOS and iPadOS, and on macOS, it's you get the description with VO Shift L. It's the classic image description command that's been there since 2017. I believe for Image Explorer, which is new on macOS this year, is VO Shift E, and there's another command um, for Ask. Um,
Okay.
I don't know if that's mapped or not. Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And as well, I don't know if you guys notice if you just say you might be in a case where you want more than just one image, it's just the whole screen, or it could be that you can't actually focus. Maybe you're in Facebook, you can't actually focus on the image itself because it's focusing on the whole post. You can go to the dynamic island and swipe there and get a description of the screen, of the whole screen, rather than the just the one image.
Yeah, that's huge because it's not just on Facebook, but yeah, you can do that to any screen and have it describe what it's seeing, and then you can ask questions upon that. It's not there yet, but I'd be really curious how much further we can do
Yes.
contextually to that and perform things for us.
That's where I hope Siri AI will come in and you'll be able to say, yeah, maybe it's an app with unlabeled buttons. So you do the swipe down on that and say, what is this? And it'll say tell you that this is a check-in button or a submit button or what have you. And
Well,
you can say, okay, select that button for me. Maybe, I don't know.
yeah. Well, the Siri app that I have now, obviously, this is very early on and it doesn't have everything in it. But really, my understanding of the Siri app that I've seen so far is just a app. Like if I open the ChatGPT, you got your history area, and then you can ask questions there, and then you can attach files and stuff to have it describe, and you can ask questions upon that.
Mm.
That's really what that's for. But Siri AI, once it's installed, meaning that you don't need to go to the app itself. It goes across the whole system at that point, meaning that now I can, for example, where you have the page one of two on your home screen, where you used to double tap that page. A lot of people didn't realize they went to the spotlight before. That actually
Mhm.
brings up your Siri AI. So you're in the spotlight, and so when I double tap that, it says, "How can I help you?" And you just ask what you want to do. So it's everywhere. So it's in the dynamic
Okay.
island. It's in your action all the time. And certain apps, there might be a Siri built into it where you can just type in the prompt in there. So it's not like you have to go to the Siri app all the time to make it work. It's just there everywhere and it's present everywhere. And that's my experience so far with my Siri AI app.
And I suppose it's kind of what they promised 2 years ago was that Siri will be able to be context aware and take actions in apps for you. And
I
they're
found
kind
this on the
of
web where AI was installed, meaning that you don't need to go to the app
who's
itself.
playing
It moves
that?
across the whole system. At that point, meaning that now I can, for example, we had to one of two on your home screen where you used to double tap that.
That me? Oh, it must have hurt us. I'm
I
so
was like,
sorry.
what's going on there?
Is that's Siri
Um,
AI right there? If you
Oh,
talk
yeah.
to it,
Oh, because you said the SIRI word, probably did that trigger it?
I think it did, and so you heard it.
yeah,
That's
we were like,
the
Yeah.
what's that voice? What's
that
going
is the new
on?
AI intelligence of kind of a conversation discussion that you have is way more deep.
Yeah,
It has
well, you
this
heard it
world
here
knowledge.
first, folks.
There you go. You got to hear it in action. But my apologies. Go ahead, Dave.
I was like, yeah, 2 years ago they promised us contextual awareness and being able to take actions in apps. And I suppose that kind of agentic, I suppose AI is what we're calling it nowadays. Is that what they're
And that's the
trying to
buzzword of the day. Yeah.
promise? Yeah, but like, is it as ambitious as what they told us, or are they being a bit more, as what they promised 2 years ago, or are they being a bit more maybe careful now? Like, what did you think of the demos they showed us, maybe?
Um,
I I think they're definitely trying to be careful. They actually demonstrate what was they can do, and they were very tight about what about this, what about that. I think that poses more problem for us because we don't know exactly what you can do without doing it.
Hmm.
Because Apple was kind of very um, scripted and what things does work, and so I was kind of like, hmm. But that's one of those things we'll have to find out exactly how it works. And I think all the news sources are in the same boat. It's like, well, what does that mean exactly? What can we do? What we can't do? So it's one of those we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, because I gave examples like of, I guess they were on a sh Amazon or a shopping site, and he had a picture of a bag and said, "Will this bag work for my trip?" Something, and
Oh,
it gave
that's
an
right.
answer. And there was one where it took a picture of a place and asked what the place is, and it said it could recognize. And then, oh, does my friend live near there? Can you give me a map or something? Are they practical solutions that you're actually going to use it for? I don't know. But
Well, yeah, kind of, sort of, because right now I'm able to because I have a 16 Pro, I have that little extra camera button down there. And for those that
mhm.
don't aren't aware about the camera action button, if you hold on it, it turns on Apple Intelligence. And I was given it a go, and it was pretty remarkable. I just turned that Apple Intelligence on, camera looked at it, and says, "Oh, Asus VivoBook." I was like, "Oh my gosh, you actually told," and it was very descriptive about my Asus laptop. And then I would say, "Okay," I just hit the follow up question, and I said, "Okay, what's you tell me about that?" And it described to the T. Oh, well, that particular model has a Qualcomm Elite Pro chip on it, first generation, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa. So
That
I
is cool.
haven't really gone into go. My next adventure is to go into the kitchen. And I'm curious if all I have to do is just hold down that button and it'll just say, oh, that's a TV dinner meal, such and such a banquet, fried chicken, whatever. And then I can follow up. I want to see if it does just as well in time, in terms of ingredients and
Mm,
cooking time. That's something to
yeah.
be seen. But that is another one I can do now, which is seem to be pretty good.
that's interesting.
So
Yeah, I wonder is that one of the region locked, bits that's under the Siri AI umbrella? Because I don't think I've seen that so far.
is that scene descriptions or what is that consider? A bunch of when you go into live recognition, there's a bunch of things. There's scene recognition, text. There's of course visual intelligence, um, which you can map your action button to. Thomas, what were you using visual intelligence or scene descriptions? What were you
I was doing the visual intelligence, so when I
visual
implement it,
intelligence?
it brings up the visual intelligence camera, and you just
Yep.
tap OK, and then it will just take a snap of what you're looking at, and then
All
it just
right.
tells me describe. So this is where the Siri AI, because it's like I said, it's presented everywhere, and that was
Mm,
Yeah.
Siri AI to the T. That was just starting to talk to me, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is
that is
way
pretty
better
cool.
than live recognition.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I have not gotten access to that feature yet. I did apply, but I haven't, at least last I checked, I've not been granted access. Um, does it cite the sources? Does it say where things are coming from? Like, when you go to ChatGPT and it searches, does it say like corroborating links or?
Not at this moment. Not when I was asking various questions. Not yet. Well, I take that back. Yes, it did. It did source some. I did ask some questions. Says this is according to MacRumor, and so it did have that little thing at the end where it was pulling. If you had world knowledge questions, now I don't know about. It did not say that when it saw my Asus computer, it just started doing it.
Interesting. Yeah. These are the things that'll be once we're a few months down the line and it's in more people's hands and we're using it, I think we'll know a lot more. I think we're in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment to see what this is really going to be capable of. They talked about it having a few different aspects. I think there's three kind of tent poles, wasn't it? The contextual awareness, the world awareness, I guess, wasn't it? And remind me what the third one is.
There you go.
Um,
But there's some other features that I found that are not related to voiceover that I like, and I like to point those out to people. There's the two things I was really stunned, and I thought this is going to be huge for me, and that one is you being able to create your own extension in Safari, meaning
yes,
that you can have this do what you want. And I was like, and then it says web monitoring is one of those. So I can say, create an extension for this and watch for the price. If it drops, then notify me. I mean, it's
I think
just,
they're two different things, Thomas. I think so. The monitoring thing is one feature where you can say, yeah, tell me when this goes on sale or when this is back in stock, and it'll create that. Yeah, that'll notify you at that point. And then the creation extension is like you could say, I want a dark mode for these websites, or I want,
mm,
you know, yeah, just that create your own kind of
like,
extensions rather than having to download them
oh,
from developers.
wow, typical extension. So it's
Mm.
just mind-boggling. I mean, I feel bad for the people that created extension for this, and now we're going to be able to create our own. That's just going to go out the window. And lastly, my other one that I'm really looking forward to, but it's not implemented yet, is creating your own shortcut. Shortcut is so complicated. I just give up.
Yeah.
I think most people don't use it because it's too complicated. Now I can say, I want this action button to be set to where when I press on it to send a ETA to my wife when I leave such and such place. It was demonstrated. I said, "Oh my gosh, that is huge."
Yeah, I think shortcuts has been, poor accessibility in that app hasn't helped. I think deteriorating accessibility in that hasn't helped. But yeah, now that being able to create them, even if you leave the accessibility aside, it is complicated app to use. So to be able to just, yeah, in natural language, just type out what you want, that's really cool. You can use this, Tyler.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, shortcuts are one of those things where, in order for me to justify spending the time to investigate and create a shortcut, I sort of need to prove to myself ahead of time that it's something I'm going to actually use or something that it's going to be worth that that lift to, in terms of re simplifying my workflow. So I do have a couple shortcuts that I have sort of developed muscle memory around, kind of like, navigating the shortcuts app. It's one of those things where it's complicated, but if you know the basics of how to use it, you can kind of get on with it. Whereas I think with what this will do, these intelligent or these describe your own shortcuts, um, is could really increase its accessibility and reachability to those who maybe might be intimidated by the shortcuts app, or maybe or who are less technically inclined. This could open the door to them. It's almost like, if you think about vibe coding, someone can code
Hmm.
their own, their own apps or whatever using things like Claude and Codex and whatever else. This is kind of not that you're interacting directly with the code with shortcuts, but a similar idea. Whereas rather than using, say, what I equate as similar to an IDE, like with shortcuts, you can just describe a shortcut and theoretically have it generated. And that could
Mhm.
really increase its utility, its accessibility and reachability. Not having to go through all those hoops, the graphical hoops of, creating actions and defining them, etc. So that
Yeah,
could be pretty
exactly.
neat in terms of, especially I'd like to see it expand to more things, where it can work deeper into the system because there are certain things where I would love to automate, but they, just currently not supported,
I
in
know. I'd even love to be
shortcuts.
able to just say, open this app, select this button, then select this button. You know what I mean? Is one thing. Like, I
Yeah.
wish that's the kind of stuff
Um,
I hope
yeah.
with
Like a
between Siri AI
script,
and
like,
shortcuts that
yeah,
it's able to
yeah,
just do.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like in,
I think that's going to be the most frustrating part, and we're going to be pulling our hair out. Is that again from the keynote aspect? It's like your mind can kind of run away from you. It's like, oh, I can do
Mm,
this, I can do that,
mm,
and in the real world, they were only demonstrating the stuff that does work. And so I'm afraid to tell people kind of tame down your expectation because it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be a free for all, do anything you want. I think it's going to be still limited, especially the shortcut. I mean, obviously, there has to be components installed to do that. So you have
mm.
to use existing components or new ones to come up. So it's going to be limited. So it's not quite 100% like I can do anything I want. It's not going to be there.
Yeah. And Thomas, like in recent years, we've had things like the writing tools and Genmoji and things launch. We've had, say, the iPhone mirroring to Mac, and voiceover support hasn't been where we'd want at the time of launch. Do you have any concerns about that this year that we're looking at these cool new Siri AI tools, things like that shortcuts or the creating extensions that do you have any concerns or fears about whether we'll actually be
No.
able to use them?
I don't because I always felt like they did a great job when it came to Gymojis and all these new things. I thought they did a pretty good job making sure accessibility worked right out of the box. Now, in beta terms, yeah, there's still going to be some issue. My Siri AI, for example, good Lord, there's still some missing elements and stuff that not being spoken to voiceover, but I know that's going to be resolved and fixed. But I know I never had any issue with that in terms of accessibility. I think there's going to be limitations, of course, common sense stuff like the image playground. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do what you visual people can do. I mean, it's
Hmm.
some of the cool stuff they were able to do that with advanced models of pre-fillers or these filler things. Like I removed something out of the pictures and it filled in. Yeah, and you're going to be limited to that. So there's certain things with common sense we're just not going to be able to do, but for the most part, I think it's right out of the box. It's working rather well. Um, Knowing that this is going to be a snow leopard year, it's going to be awesome to fix a lot of the different bugs that's still out there.
Yeah, here's hoping anyway. And yeah, I
No,
share your optimism. I share your optimism. So I think it's
yeah,
cool.
I think Apple's doing a great job, but
and another thing I just wanted to point out is there's another agentic feature that I thought could be useful if it works as advertised, and that is the ability for the AI to change your passwords for you in the Passwords app to make them more secure. Say if there was a data leak that the Passwords app detects, then rather than needing to manually go to the website, sign in, find where you change the password and make that change and update it in the Passwords app, what this feature can do theoretically is change, go on the website, change the password for you, and update it in the background. So you don't need to do anything. You just need to allow it to do its thing. Now, assuming that works with the appropriate security and privacy safeguards, say, I can't imagine something like that would work entirely on device, given the computational power that sounds like would be involved. But if it's using, say, private cloud compute, where things aren't stored, um, then that could be useful. Maybe not so much if there's maybe one password to change, because at least for me, I don't find the process of changing passwords. It's usually not that complicated in my experience. It's fairly uniform across the internet, I found, but I picture it being more useful for people who currently don't use a password manager, but may want to get into it, say creating randomly generated passwords instead of using the same or similar passwords for everything, which makes them, rather than being totally vulnerable to a dictionary attack, you could use a password manager without all the pain points of going to each and every website and changing the password to every random password. That transition can be a bit daunting when you think about all the accounts that a person might have. If the AI can do that in the background, that could
Mm.
be a huge security win because more people would be um, inclined to use a password manager if they weren't so before because of what was involved in sort of in that kind of migration. If all of that was taken care of for them, they wouldn't need to transition and methodically and meticulously go through each website, change each password, and make sure each thing was, record was correct. Um,
I'm not confident on that one.
Yeah, I think the
yeah,
words
if it works as
if it works
advertised,
was doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
I'm not confident. And I'll give you a reason. Remember hold assist? That sounds
Mm,
amazing. Well, oh my gosh, this is great. It's going to work it was like, yeah, that has some severe limitation. And I got a funny feeling that's going to have a limitation too. In a perfect world, that's the first thing I thought, oh, this would be fantastic, but I don't think it's going to work as well as you. I think some places it'll be fine. Some places just not going to work because some places just very difficult to get a password change. I don't.
mm.
That's just my 2 cents. I'm not confident or hopeful that's going to be as good as it
And
advertised.
and what type of multi-factor is it using? If it's using an SMS sort of multi-factor, I could see it working because that comes in, it's already able to kind of autofill those codes when they're sent to you. But what if it's like Google and they use a thing where it sends a notification to another device? Like, please open YouTube on your iPad to confirm that you're trying to sign in on your Mac. That kind of thing happens. So yeah, will those more complex multi-factor websites work with this, I think, as well.
hmm I thought maybe we could address some of the questions that people have, and these are the things that they
Hmm.
want to know besides the feature we have. First, let's talk about the OS and OS 27, what's devices supported. There's two big ones, and the other ones are not as big. There was a major surprise. I think we all were like, "Oh wow!" Especially for those that are up on news and rumors and things like that. There were rumors that iPhone 11 would be out, and that was
Hmm.
not the case. So OS 27 for when it comes to the iPhone and the iPads. If your device supports OS 26 now, congratulations, you got another year. You're going to get 27 now minus the Apple Intelligence, which we talked about earlier, the three different tiers, but you get that OS. I was shocked. I was like, holy craps, that's a 7 year device and it's still getting the latest release. So I was happy about that. Um, the major one I was surprised, or the two, is the Mac OS, which by the way, I'm not a fan of the Golden Gate name at all. I thought it was going to be Big Bear.
That was the
That was
rumor.
that was a rumor, and I really liked Big Bear, but Golden Gate, I was not impressed by that also. The naming was terrible. But nonetheless, this is the year. It dropped all Intel Macs. So if you have an Intel, goodbye. You have to have M chips now to support the new OS 27. And I am curious if the rumors are true, have not been discussed because they dropped the Intel. I have a funny feeling that OS 27 will have to confirm it. Is that it no longer will run Intel applications? So we had the Rosetta, I think it's called. I think
Yeah.
that Rosetta is gone.
I
So
think they have made an announcement of that. I think there's one more year. Is that right, Tyler?
one more
So,
year.
yeah. So Apple announced last year that 26 Tahoe would be the last version of macOS to run on
Oh,
Intel-based Macs. So this was expected, that it would only run on Apple Silicon Macs for 27. 27 will be the last version to support Rosetta fully.
Mm,
Meaning if you have an application, if you have an Intel app now, you can run it on 27. It's gonna give you a warning before you open. I think it still does in 26.4 and 26.5 or whatever.
Mhm.
It gives you a warning saying, this Rosetta will not be supported in a future version of macOS. I interpret that to mean macOS 28. At that time, Apple will remove Rosetta support except for some features intended mainly for legacy games. Exactly where they draw that line and why it will work for a game but not something else, I don't know. But they did lay out their roadmap last year for winding down the Intel era.
That's
Cool.
interesting. But at least in
Yes, it,
terms of whether you're going to get 27, it's pretty cut and dry. Intel, no.
Yeah,
M1 upwards,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So there's no Intel. You cannot run 27 on an Intel-based
Mm.
Mac, but you can run Intel apps. Whereas 28, you will not be able to run Intel apps except for legacy games, whatever those are.
well, thanks for the clarification. That helped a lot. So the bottom line is that it's starting to be more clear cut now, and then you got another year for the Rosetta. So that's kind of a nudge that they're going this direction. So they're going to dump that. And then the other OS 27 bomb I thought was a bomb to me was the Watch OS. Only now supports 9, 10, and 11. I was like,
Mm.
whoa, that was huge because that means if you have a watch that's only, well, coming up this fall, it'll be 3 years old. That's it. Where the iPhone, you got 7 years with the phones, iPhone 11 and
Yeah.
up. And I was just stunned. I was very surprised.
Even the Ultra, I think the first Ultra is dropped, which,
Yeah,
I've
you had
seen
to have the
people.
second generation Ultra and the third generation SE.
Yeah,
Or I'm
so
sorry, I'm thinking of the, yeah, that's right.
yeah, and you're right because that's not that old, and like it's not unusual to keep an Apple Watch for 4 or 5 years,
Right. I don't know. I'm going to be disappointed with that. My wife has a Series 8, and that's only not even going to be 4 years old. You would think that still be within the supported OS. No, I was stunned. I was stunned. I was like,
On
wow.
on the plus side, well, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I couldn't tell you one single thing that watchOS 27 has.
Um, there's some improved health tracking. Um, there's some improved like health features, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Workout buddy
look
upgrades.
internally, spec wise, it's the same iOS, so or watch OS. If you look internally, spec wise, 9, 10, 11 are identical. It's just a
Mm,
little here and there of upper software things you can get with 10 and 11, but that was it. And then just like the 6, 7, 8 were the same series where they had the exact same internal chips and spec for them too.
yeah. WatchOS barely got a mention yesterday. I mean, I know, as we said,
Right?
but none of the OSs got a huge amount because they were talking about features rather than OSs, but WatchOS really didn't get mentioned.
I've not heard about that. My feelings are not hurt because I don't like watching these watch video where somebody's hiking and biking and stuff like, oh man, no, none of us. I don't know. I was just glad that it didn't get too much love, but yeah, it barely got any mention. But
Mm.
so I thought people would be interested in that. And then the most second part, I think that a lot of people in exclusive that we do for our roundtable is what's new. What's new in OS 27 that we might find this interesting? Besides the Apple Intelligence, there are a few things I found on my own. No, there's no new voices, folks. There's no major thing. There's just some minor things. Um, there's now I found in within the settings of VoiceOver, there's a new control that gives you a little more verbosity that you want for the text exploration
Mm.
or touch exploration. I found. Um, there's when you do any recording on screen reader, your voiceover cursor appears. Now there's a setting in there you can turn that off. Not that's a big deal, but if that's something that you record for YouTube or something you don't want people to know, they have all that you can turn that off. And my favorite, and I think a lot of people like this, if you have a punctuation dictionary, that's very important. I saw in there that you can import and export that. So that means you can put that on a totally different device for somebody else. You can export that and import it into the
Punctuation or pronunciation?
I thought it was
pronunciation.
pronunciation, but yeah.
Pronunciation. I apologize for the
Yeah,
correction. It is a pronunciation dictionary.
that's good. Yeah, to be able, so you can export that and send it to somebody else. Is that the idea, as opposed to just
Yeah, you don't like the
it's not.
Wi-Fi? You can actually
Mm,
put
yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's cool. And in fairness, we've only had developer beta one, so it's not impossible that more things will happen. So even you say you'd like no new voices, and that may well be the case, but never say never, I suppose.
Um, and then another thing, just briefly, um, the third pillar that wasn't, or that was actually the start of the keynote, but we didn't talk. I'm just going to address briefly. Apple did emphasize performance improvements and improvements to sort of common everyday tasks that aren't hugely marketable new features, but could be improvements in overall quality of life for Apple device users. According to them, apps launch up to 30% faster. Um, AirDrop transfers about can be up to 80% faster. Um, and there's improvements in network connectivity in roaming or going from when things say handing off from cell to Wi-Fi and
Yeah.
things like that,
Yeah, and
or transferring to AirPlay.
new
Um,
indexing for Spotlight
but
and
yeah,
stuff
the
like that
new
as
search
well.
infrastructure. That's what all the indexing is. When you first install the beta, you might notice it's
Mm.
indexing and it might feel a bit laggy because it's indexing and so it's supposedly to improve the reliability and accessibility of various types of information, getting them surfaced more quickly
Yeah,
and
Boy, that
exactly.
indexing took forever, didn't it?
Oh my God.
It took a whole
Yeah.
day for me before the indexing was done. And during that time, especially first installing it, you can tell it was lagging. I was like, oh my gosh. And finally it stopped. And now it's not draining my battery anymore.
Certain tasks still are for me. Again,
There-
beta one, this is just a warning of like if you put it on a main device, you're putting your life in your hands. Because I swear to God, my thing got hotter than the sun coming home from work
right?
today,
yeah.
just using Safari and listening to a podcast,
I,
So
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll
Um,
improve when it comes to release,
oh,
but I
absolutely, yeah.
definitely have to warn people when they install it, when this coming fall, that it'll definitely be laggy for a little bit. And I think they're going to do their best to make it not as laggy, but we'll have to remind people it's laggy because it's indexing, and I'll show them where to find it if it's still indexing. And then I highly recommend leaving in charge for a while to
Mm.
expedite and speed that up. But do you guys
Yeah.
see that there's a settings in the Braille area now that you can now have predictive text in Braille display? I was like, that wasn't a thing
Mm.
before.
That's an interesting.
mm,
I'm not a Braille user enough to say, but yeah. I
Yeah,
wonder
and
will
the
that be
Braille
popular or
screen.
not? How that
Yeah, the B.
mixes with contractions and things like that. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like,
oh yeah.
um, BSI users will be happy too because it now has autocorrect is now part of the BSI, which wasn't there before. But I know a lot of people have that
okay,
turned off from the keyboard anyway. But that's in the settings as well to have that on or off.
okay,
Mm,
And the predictive thing is
good.
also in the BSI too, as a setting.
Yeah. And in terms of, yeah,
mm,
Tyler, you kind of bring up that whole part of it, the reliability. I suppose it goes back to what we were saying earlier about it's Snow Leopard, so-called Snow Leopard release, that
yeah.
people have been shouting and asking for. And
Yeah.
we hope that it extends to making voiceover more stable, less bugs, all of that kind of stuff
Yeah.
by the
More
time we get to
consistent.
release. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Another thing, according to Apple, users of older devices can apparently look forward to is the improved CPU scheduling. They were somehow able to backport the software side of that to older devices, which again should make them feel faster and more fluid in terms of for the system to be ability to predict the tasks that a user might do and prioritize them so that they feel faster and more fluid. That's that improved CPU scheduling that they were talking about. That's what they've claimed. I've not seen any benchmarks or comparisons between that. But if you are on an older device, that may be something to look forward to, having those improvements, which is actually, funnily enough, similar to what Snow Leopard did with their at the time their revamped task scheduling on macOS. What at the time was like Grand Central Dispatch, where how
That's what I
things were
was thinking too.
prioritized by the CPU, how they would change the order of how things were prioritized to make it supposedly more efficient.
I'm glad
So
you
I'm
mentioned
looking.
that, Tyler, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Is that boy, this is sure sounds like Snow Leopard for real this time. Now, a couple of years ago, they so-called said this was going to be the update. It seems like this one is more serious because of all those updates and optimizing and configuring to make some tweaks. And so I think that's overdue. And this year, uh, yes, you're going to be overwhelmed if you're expecting a lot of things, but I'm really looking forward to this from the keynote and to iOS or OS 27. I'm looking forward to it because I really do think they're going to be serious this time and try to weed whack a lot of the bugs that we all have come to endure for the past few years. So hoping that this, and when gets released, that this will be bug free or a lot
This
less
is our
better.
this is our year.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
our
our year
year.
finally. Let's hope.
Let's
That
hope.
at
Yeah.
least that was the impression I got from the keynote and the when they first mentioned when they came into keynote, this is the year that we're taking a back seat. All your major apps that we do is taking a back seat. There's nothing major, and they were very
Mm.
upfront with that.
Yeah. So yeah, great. Thomas, do you want to tell people just a little about our what we're going to be up to over the summer in terms of we've got a community book program and then yeah, what people can expect in terms of coverage on the website over the next 3 months, I guess.
Well, as you always know, this is the summertime. This is the beta testing time. And so we encourage everybody to beta test if you have access or if you are willing to beta test. It's pretty stable in terms of beta one, in terms of not posing too many problems. There's lots of little minor bugs, of course, but we do have a community bug submission. So there's two ways to participate. The community bug submission we have on the website, you can fill out and share what you found with us. And so we can also report that to Apple. So the more people that submit it to us, the more we can together as a team and community get to Apple to get these things fixed. We need to do this very soon, which means the whole month of June and July, definitely we need to do it now. Because if you wait until August, forget it. Because at that time, they're done doing fixes. They're just wrapping things up. The second thing, we do have lots of forum posts out there now that a lot of people are just coming in to talk and telling us all about their bugs and see if other people had issues. Please do chime in, submit or just mention about your bugs because we do have team members that is going to be combing through all the forums and topics and people that are reporting things. If it's something that we can reproduce easily, we will report it automatically without you having to submit it to us. So it's kind of a two-prong attack that we are serious about this year, but we need your help. We want to make this gone. And so if you have previous bugs, let us know, mention it in the forum or submit that into the bug community. So that's what we're going to be focused on for the next 2 or 3 months. So remember, by August, it's going to be too late. Usually about beta 5, forget it. Because at that time, they're done unless it's something major. So we got to do it now.
Brilliant. We're going to be busy bees over the summer, but it'll all be worth it, and we'll have some great stuff come September then, and some great operating systems we hope. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
hope everybody's happy with us and helping each other to make this the best beta um, testing, and most of all, this be the best or OS release. Let's hope. Let's cross our finger, but we need your help.
Cool. Well, with all that said, I just want to say huge thanks again to you, Thomas, and to you, Tyler, for joining the show today. Great chat. Really interesting event in many ways. Plenty to talk about, plenty to think about. And yeah, let's enjoy the summer.
All right. Bye-bye.
This podcast was brought to you by the community at AppleVis.com. AppleVis, empowering people who are blind, deafblind, or who have low vision to get the most from Apple products and related technologies. A proud member of the Be My Eyes family. For more information, visit our website at www.applevis.com.